The winter of 1965 came hard to Harlem. Snow covered the streets like a white blanket. Bumpy Johnson walked slowly down Lenox Avenue. His black coat kept him warm. His hat sat low on his head. People knew who he was. They moved aside as he passed. Bumpy was 58 years old now. His face showed the years of his life. Deep lines marked his dark skin, but his eyes were still sharp. They missed nothing. He had ruled these streets for many years. Some people feared him. Others respected him. Most did both. The streets were busy that morning. Shopkeepers opened their doors. Children ran to school. Women carried bags of groceries. Everyone had somewhere to go. Bumpy walked with purpose. He was going to meet some business partners at the corner cafe. As he walked, Bumpy thought about the old days. Things were changing in Harlem. New people wanted power, young men who did not remember how things used to be. They did not respect the old ways. This worried Bumpy. He knew change could be dangerous. The cafe was 3 blocks away. Bumpy turned the corner onto 125th Street. The cold wind hit his face. He pulled his coat tighter. Ahead, he could see the cafe's red sign. Steam rose from its windows. The smell of coffee and bacon filled the air. Just another morning in Harlem, or so it seemed. Inside the corner cafe, 3 men sat waiting. They drank coffee and spoke in low voices. Their eyes kept moving to the door. They were waiting for Bumpy. These men worked for him. They ran numbers, managed businesses, and kept the peace in different parts of Harlem. Marcus was the youngest. He was 30 years old with quick hands and a quicker mind. He handled the money. Willie was 45, strong as an ox, and loyal to Bumpy for 20 years. Then there was old Joe, who was almost as old as Bumpy himself. Joe remembered everything and forgot nothing. "He's late," Marcus said, tapping his fingers on the table. "Bumpy is never late," Willie replied. "They'll be here." Old Joe just sipped his coffee and watched the street through the window. He saw everything but said little. That was his way. Years of living in Harlem taught a man when to speak and when to stay quiet. The door opened. Cold air rushed in, but it was not Bumpy. A young man entered. He wore a leather jacket and walked with too much confidence. His name was Tommy. He was new to the neighborhood. Word on the street said he was trying to build his own crew. He wanted to take over some of Bumpy's territory. Tommy saw the 3 men and smiled. It was not a friendly smile. He walked to the counter and ordered coffee. But his eyes stayed on Bumpy's men. Marcus felt his muscles tense. Something was wrong. He could feel it in the air. Willie felt it too. His hand moved closer to his coat pocket. Old Joe just kept watching the street. Bumpy reached the cafe just as the church bells rang 8 times. He opened the door and stepped inside. The warm air felt good after the cold street. He saw his men at the corner table. He saw Tommy at the counter. Bumpy's eyes narrowed slightly, but his face showed nothing else. He started walking toward his table. The cafe was crowded. People sat at every table. Some were eating breakfast. Others just wanted to escape the cold. Bumpy moved between the tables carefully. He nodded to people he knew. They nodded back with respect. Then it happened. As Bumpy passed near the counter, Tommy turned suddenly. His shoulder hit Bumpy hard. The push was not an accident. It was meant to disrespect, to challenge. Bumpy stumbled sideways. His hand grabbed a table to steady himself. Coffee cups rattled. Conversation stopped. The cafe went completely silent. Everyone stared. In Harlem, everyone knew what a push meant. It was not just a push, it was a challenge to a man's dignity, to his power. In the streets, such things could not be ignored. Blood had been spilled for less. Tommy stood there, smirking. He was testing Bumpy. He wanted to see what the old man would do. Would he fight? Would he back down? All of Harlem would hear about this moment. Whatever happened next would change things. Bumpy stood up straight. He brushed off his coat slowly. His face remained calm, but everyone could feel the tension. It was like electricity in the air. Marcus, Willie, and old Joe were already standing. Their hands were ready. The whole cafe held its breath. Bumpy looked at Tommy for a long moment. His dark eyes studied the young man's face. Tommy tried to hold the stare, but something in Bumpy's eyes made him nervous. This was not the reaction he expected. Bumpy was not angry. He was not reaching for a weapon. He was just looking, thinking. Then Bumpy did something nobody expected. He smiled. Not a mean smile or a threatening smile, a real smile. It reached his eyes and made the lines in his face deeper. The whole cafe seemed confused. This was not how things worked on the streets. "Young man," Bumpy said in his deep, calm voice, "you just pushed me." Tommy swallowed hard but tried to act tough. "Yeah, I did. What you gonna do about it, old man?" Bumpy's smile did not fade. "I'm going to buy you breakfast." The words hung in the air like snow that forgot to fall. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Did Bumpy Johnson, the man who had ruled Harlem's underworld for decades, just offer to buy breakfast for someone who disrespected him? Marcus started to speak, but Bumpy held up his hand. Willie looked confused. Old Joe's eyes widened just a little, which for him was like shouting in surprise. Tommy looked most confused of all. This was not what he planned. He came to challenge Bumpy, maybe even fight him. Now the old man was offering him food? "Come on," Bumpy said, gesturing to his table. "Sit with us. Let's talk like civilized men." The tension in the room changed. It was still there, but different now. People started breathing again. Conversation slowly started back up. But every eye in the cafe was still watching. Everyone wanted to see what would happen next. Tommy did not know what to do. He came here to make a name for himself, to show everyone he was not afraid of the great Bumpy Johnson. But now the old man was offering him breakfast. If he refused, he would look weak. If he accepted, what did that mean? Bumpy was already walking to his table. He sat down in his usual seat, the one that faced the door. A good man always watches the door. That was one of the old rules. Bumpy looked at Tommy and patted the empty chair next to him. "Don't be shy," Bumpy said. "The eggs here are the best in Harlem." Tommy's friends would never believe this. Slowly, he walked to the table and sat down. He kept his hands visible, showing he was not reaching for anything. Bumpy's men were all watching him closely. Marcus looked angry. Willie looked suspicious. Old Joe just looked interested. Bumpy waved to the waitress. "Bring us a big breakfast, Rosie. Eggs, bacon, toast, everything, and more coffee all around." Rosie nodded quickly and went to the kitchen. She had worked at this cafe for 15 years. She had seen many things, but she had never seen anything like this. Everyone was talking about it already. By noon, all of Harlem would know. "What's your name, son?" Bumpy asked. "Tommy," the young man answered. His voice was quieter now. "Tommy what?" "Tommy Wright." Bumpy nodded slowly. "Wright. I knew some Wrights from South Carolina. Any relation?" "My grandfather came from there," Tommy admitted. He was not sure why he was answering. Something about Bumpy's calm voice made it hard not to. "Good people, the Wrights," Bumpy said. "Hard-working, honest. Your grandfather still around?" Tommy shook his head. "Died 5 years ago." "Sorry to hear that," Bumpy said, and he sounded like he meant it. The food arrived quickly. Rosie put plates of eggs, bacon, toast, and hash browns on the table. The smell was wonderful. Tommy realized he had not eaten since yesterday. His stomach growled. Bumpy noticed but said nothing. He just started eating, and the others did too. For a few minutes, nobody spoke. They just ate. This was another old rule Bumpy lived by. Good food deserved respect and attention. Business could wait until after eating. Tommy ate hungrily. The food was as good as Bumpy said. Finally, Bumpy put down his fork and looked at Tommy. "So Tommy Wright, why did you push me?" The question was direct but not angry. Tommy stopped eating. He felt all eyes on him again. What should he say? The truth? A lie? He decided on honesty. Something about this situation demanded it. "I wanted people to see I'm not afraid of you," Tommy said. "I'm trying to build something in this neighborhood. But everyone says I have to go through you first. I don't see why. Things are changing. It's 1965, not 1945. Maybe it's time for new leadership." Marcus made a sound of anger, but Bumpy waved him quiet. Bumpy was actually nodding like he understood. This surprised everyone at the table. "You're right," Bumpy said. "Things are changing. Times are different. The young should lead eventually. That's natural. That's good." Tommy had not expected this. He thought Bumpy would be angry, would threaten him, would defend his power. Instead, the old man was agreeing with him. "But let me ask you something," Bumpy continued. "Do you know why I'm still here after all these years? Why people still respect me?" Tommy shook his head. He had wondered about that. Bumpy was old. Older men usually got pushed aside. That was how the streets worked. The strong replaced the weak. Bumpy leaned back in his chair. His coffee cup was warm in his hands. He looked past Tommy, past the cafe, like he was seeing into the past itself. When he spoke, his voice was soft but clear. Everyone at the table leaned in to hear. "When I was about your age," Bumpy began, "I thought the same things you think now. I thought power came from being tough, from being feared, from making people respect you through strength. And for a while, that worked. I built my reputation with my fists and my gun. People got out of my way." Tommy listened carefully. This was not what he expected to hear. But then something happened. Bumpy continued. "A man named Dutch Schultz tried to move into Harlem. You probably never heard of him. He was big in the 1930s, very tough, very violent. He thought he could take over because he was willing to kill anyone who stood in his way." Marcus and Willie had heard this story before, but they listened like it was the first time. Old Joe nodded slowly. He remembered Dutch Schultz. "Dutch had more men than me, more guns, more money. By every measure, he should have won. But he didn't. You know why?" Tommy shook his head. "Because I understood something he didn't. Power is not just about fear, it's about trust. It's about being part of the community. These people in Harlem, they didn't trust Dutch. He was an outsider. He was just here to take from them. But me? I grew up on these streets. I knew these people. When Dutch's men tried to shake down a shopkeeper, I stopped them. When Dutch tried to bring drugs into the schools, I stood against it." Bumpy took a sip of his coffee before continuing. "The people chose me over Dutch, even though he was more powerful. And that's when I learned the most important lesson of my life." Bumpy set down his coffee cup and looked directly at Tommy. His eyes were intense but not threatening. They were the eyes of a teacher, not an enemy. "Real power," Bumpy said, "comes from the people giving it to you, not from you taking it. A king with no subjects is just a man with a fancy hat. A general with no army is just a man with a uniform. You understand what I'm telling you?" Tommy was beginning to. He had never thought about power this way. He thought power was something you took, something you seized, like a prize in a fight. But Bumpy was saying it was something people gave you. That was different. That changed everything. "When you pushed me today," Bumpy continued, "you were trying to take power, trying to show everyone you're tough enough to challenge me. But look around this cafe. What did people see?" Tommy looked around. People were still watching them, but the mood had changed. They were not seeing a fight. They were not seeing Tommy as a hero who stood up to Bumpy. They were seeing something else. "They saw a young man disrespecting an elder," Bumpy explained. "They saw someone trying to cause trouble in their peaceful cafe. They saw rudeness, not strength. You didn't gain power in their eyes. You lost it." The words hit Tommy like cold water. He had been so focused on challenging Bumpy that he had not thought about how everyone else would see it. He thought they would admire his courage. Instead, they probably thought he was just another troublemaker. Willie grunted in agreement. Marcus was nodding. Even the other people in the cafe who were pretending not to listen were nodding slightly. Bumpy was right. He was always right about these things. That was why he had lasted so long. "Now," Bumpy said, "let me tell you what I did instead. I could have hit you. My men wanted me to. You disrespected me in public. By street rules, I should have responded with violence. That's what you expected, isn't it?" Tommy nodded. That was exactly what he expected. He was prepared to fight. He thought he might even win. Bumpy was old, after all. But then what? He would have more enemies. Bumpy's men would come after him. The cycle of violence would continue. "But I invited you to breakfast," Bumpy said. "I treated you with kindness and respect, even though you treated me badly. Now what do people see?" Tommy was beginning to understand. "They see you being the bigger man." "Exactly," Bumpy said, smiling. "They see wisdom. They see control. They see someone who doesn't need to fight every battle because he's secure in his power. And what do they see you as now?" Tommy felt his face getting warm. "Someone who got lucky, someone who was shown mercy." "Not just mercy," Bumpy corrected gently. "Opportunity. I'm giving you an opportunity to learn, to grow, to become someone who leads not just through fear, but through wisdom. That's worth more than winning a fight." Old Joe spoke for the first time that morning. His voice was rough like gravel. "Bumpy could have ended you today, boy. Instead, he's trying to teach you. You should listen." Marcus added, "He's right. We've all learned from Bumpy. That's why we're still here, still alive, still successful. The men who only knew violence? They're all dead or in prison." Tommy sat quietly thinking. His whole view of the world was shifting. He came here to challenge a king. Instead, he was getting an education. Maybe that was worth more. Bumpy finished his breakfast and pushed his plate away. He ordered more coffee for everyone. The cafe was getting busier as morning went on. More people came in, saw Bumpy at his table, and nodded respectfully. They saw Tommy there too, and their eyes showed curiosity. "Tommy," Bumpy said, "I'm going to make you an offer. You can accept it or refuse it. Either way, there's no hard feelings after today. What happened this morning, the push, we'll forget about it. Clean slate." Tommy waited. He had no idea what Bumpy would offer. "You want to build something in this neighborhood," Bumpy continued. "That's good. Harlem needs young men with ambition, but you need to learn how to do it right, how to build something that lasts, how to be a leader that people follow because they want to, not because they're afraid." Bumpy paused to let his words sink in. The table was quiet. Even the noise of the cafe seemed distant. "Work with me for 1 year," Bumpy said. "Let me teach you what I know. I'll introduce you to people, show you how things really work, how to make money without hurting your community, how to solve problems without violence, how to earn real respect. After 1 year, if you still want to go your own way, you can. I won't stop you. I'll even help you get started." The offer hung in the air. It was generous. Too generous, Tommy thought. What was the catch? "Why would you do that?" Tommy asked. "Why help me?" "I disrespected you. Most men in your position would want me gone." Bumpy smiled that same warm smile. "Because I see myself in you, Tommy. 30 years ago, I was you. Angry, ambitious, impatient. Someone took a chance on me, taught me, shaped me. His name was Stephanie St. Clair. Maybe you've heard of her?" Tommy had. Everyone in Harlem knew the stories about Stephanie St. Clair, the queen of numbers. She was a legend. "Stephanie could have crushed me when I first started," Bumpy said. "I was working against her, trying to take her business. But instead, she offered me a partnership. Taught me the game. Showed me there was a better way. Everything I am, everything I know, I learned from her. Now it's my turn to pass it on." Tommy was overwhelmed. This morning started with him trying to make a name for himself by challenging Bumpy Johnson. Now the most powerful man in Harlem was offering to be his mentor. It seemed impossible, yet here it was, really happening. "What if I say no?" Tommy asked. "What happens then?" Bumpy shrugged. "Then you say no, you go your way, I go mine. But Tommy, think carefully. You're smart enough to have gotten this far, enough to recognize as an opportunity when you see one. Pride is expensive. Wisdom is priceless." Marcus watched Tommy carefully. He had been in Tommy's shoes once. Bumpy had taught him too. Now Marcus ran 3 legal businesses and 2 not-so-legal ones. He had a nice house, a car, respect. All because he was smart enough to learn from Bumpy. Willie had a different story. He came to Bumpy after spending 5 years in prison. He was angry at the world, ready to hurt anyone who looked at him wrong. Bumpy gave him a job, gave him purpose, gave him a family. Now Willie had 2 kids in college. That would never have happened without Bumpy. Old Joe just watched with his knowing eyes. He had seen many young men sit at this table over the years. Some were smart and learned. They prospered. Others were too proud and refused. Most of them were dead now, or wished they were. Tommy looked around the table at these men. They were successful. They were alive. They were free. That meant something in this world where so many young black men ended up dead or in prison. Maybe Bumpy's way was better than his way. Tommy took a deep breath. This was the biggest decision of his life, and he had to make it right now, in this cafe with everyone watching. His pride told him to refuse, to prove he did not need anyone. But something deeper, something wiser, told him to accept. "I accept," Tommy said. The words came out quieter than he intended. He cleared his throat and said it again, stronger. "I accept your offer, Mr. Johnson. I'll work with you for 1 year. I'll learn what you have to teach." Bumpy's face broke into a wide smile. He reached across the table and shook Tommy's hand. His grip was still strong despite his age. "Good man. You made the right choice. You won't regret it." The tension that had filled the cafe all morning finally broke. People went back to their conversations, their breakfasts, their normal lives. But everyone would remember this morning. The story would spread across Harlem like fire. The young man who pushed Bumpy Johnson and lived to tell about it. The morning when violence turned into opportunity. Marcus relaxed in his chair. Willie allowed himself a small smile. Old Joe nodded once, which was his way of showing approval. Rosie brought more coffee and a big slice of apple pie. "On the house," she said, celebrating new beginnings. Bumpy cut the pie into 5 pieces and handed them around. They ate in comfortable silence. Outside, the snow had stopped. The sun was trying to break through the clouds. It felt like a sign, like the weather agreed that something good had happened here today. "So when do we start?" Tommy asked. "We already started," Bumpy said. "Your first lesson happened this morning. Do you know what it was?" Tommy thought about everything that had happened. The push, the invitation to breakfast, the conversation, the offer. What was the lesson in all of that? "The lesson," Tommy said slowly, thinking it through, "is that how you respond to conflict matters more than the conflict itself?" Bumpy nodded, pleased. "That's part of it. What else?" Tommy thought harder. There was more to it. That showing strength doesn't always mean fighting? "Better," Bumpy said. "Keep going." That, Tommy struggled to put it into words. That being generous and unexpected is more powerful than being predictable and violent? "Now you're getting it," Bumpy said. "Everyone expected me to hit you. You expected it. My men expected it. Everyone in this cafe expected it. If I had hit you, what would have happened?" Tommy could see it clearly now. "We would have fought. Maybe I would have won. Maybe you would have won. Either way, someone gets hurt. Either way, nothing really changes. It just continues the same cycle." "Exactly," Bumpy said. "But by doing the unexpected, I changed everything. I turned an enemy into a student. I turned a conflict into an opportunity. I showed everyone watching that I'm still in control, not because I'm the toughest, but because I'm the wisest. That's real power, Tommy. That's what lasts." Willie added, "And if he had fought you, someone would eventually fight him the same way. Violence just breeds more violence. It never ends. We've all seen it." Old Joe spoke again, his voice thoughtful. "In the old days, Harlem was a war zone, different gangs fighting over every corner, blood on the streets every night. Bumpy helped change that. Not by being the most violent, but by being the smartest. By building alliances, by showing people there was a better way." Marcus leaned forward. "When I first started working with Bumpy, I thought I knew everything. I was going to be rich, feared, powerful. But Bumpy taught me that being rich means nothing if you're always looking over your shoulder. Fear only lasts until someone more fearsome comes along. Real power, lasting power, comes from building something that benefits everyone." After breakfast, Bumpy stood up and put on his coat. "Come on, Tommy, let's take a walk. I want to show you something." They left the cafe together, Bumpy and Tommy in front, with Marcus, Willie, and Old Joe following behind. The snow had stopped completely now, and the sun was bright in the sky. The streets of Harlem looked beautiful, covered in fresh white snow. As they walked, Bumpy pointed out different buildings and businesses. "See that grocery store? That's owned by Mr. Chen. He came here from China 20 years ago with nothing. I gave him a loan to start his business. Now he employs 6 people from the neighborhood. His kids are in college." They walked further. "That barbershop? That's Jerome's place. He was headed down a bad path, getting into trouble. I talked to him, helped him see he had a talent for cutting hair. Now he's got the best barbershop in Harlem. He gives free haircuts to kids before school starts each year." Block by block, Bumpy showed Tommy his real empire. It was not built on fear or violence. It was built on relationships, on helping people, on being part of the community. Every person they passed greeted Bumpy with genuine warmth. These people were not afraid of him. They liked him. They respected him. They trusted him. "This is what I've built," Bumpy said. "Not through violence, but through being someone people can count on. When someone needs help, I help them. When someone has a problem, I solve it. When someone has a dream, I help make it real. That's why I'm still here after all these years. That's why people are loyal to me." Tommy was seeing Harlem with new eyes. He had thought power was about controlling territory, about making people fear you. But Bumpy had shown him something different. Bumpy controlled Harlem not by oppressing it, but by serving it. By being its protector, its banker, its problem solver, its friend. They stopped at a small restaurant. Inside, a woman was crying. She was middle-aged, wearing an apron stained with food. The restaurant was empty except for her and a young man who looked uncomfortable. "Mrs. Rodriguez," Bumpy said gently, "what's wrong?" The woman looked up and saw Bumpy. Relief washed over her face. "Oh, Mr. Johnson, thank God. These men came this morning. They say I have to pay them $300 every month for protection. But I already pay rent. I can't afford another $300. I'll have to close my restaurant." The young man tried to leave, but Willie blocked the door. Bumpy turned to him. "Who do you work for?" The young man was scared now. Snake Johnson. "He's your cousin, Mr. Johnson. He said it was okay. He said you wouldn't mind." Bumpy's face hardened for the first time that day. "Snake is not my cousin. He's a distant relative who uses my name without permission." "Where is he?" "At the pool hall on 132nd Street. Bumpy turned to Tommy. "Come with me. This is your second lesson. Sometimes, despite everything I just told you about avoiding violence, you need to show strength. But watch how and when you do it. The when is as important as the how." They left the restaurant and walked to 132nd Street. Marcus went ahead to make sure Snake did not run. Willie and Old Joe flanked Bumpy and Tommy. They were a force moving through Harlem. People saw them coming and got out of the way. This was different from the gentle walk earlier. This was Bumpy Johnson on business. The pool hall was dark and smoky inside. Young men played pool and drank beer even though it was still morning. In the back corner at the best table was Snake. He was tall and thin, wearing expensive clothes. When he saw Bumpy, his confident smile faded. "Snake," Bumpy said, his voice cold. "We need to talk." Snake tried to act casual. "Hey Bumpy, what brings you here?" "You know what brings me here. You've been shaking down businesses in my neighborhood, using my name to scare people." "Come on, Bumpy," Snake said, still trying to smile. "We're family. I thought we could work together. There's enough money for everyone." Bumpy walked closer. Everyone in the pool hall had stopped playing. They were all watching. "Let me make something very clear, Snake. We are not family, not in any way that matters, and you will not use my name for your schemes." Snake's smile disappeared. He straightened up, trying to look tough. "Or what? You gonna hurt me? I got men too, old man. Times are changing. Maybe your time is over." This was a critical moment. Tommy watched carefully. This was the lesson. How would Bumpy handle this direct challenge? It was different from Tommy's push this morning. This was not a young man testing boundaries. This was a real threat to Bumpy's authority and to the people he protected. Bumpy did not raise his voice. He did not need to. "Snake, you have two choices. 1, you leave Harlem today. Go somewhere else. Start over. I won't stop you or come after you. Clean slate. 2, you stay and keep doing what you're doing. If you choose that, I promise you will regret it. Not because I'll hurt you, but because every business owner, every shopkeeper, every person you try to shake down will know you don't have my protection. They'll know I'm against you. How long do you think you'll last?" Snake looked around at his men. They would not meet his eyes. They understood what Bumpy was saying. Without Bumpy's approval, Snake had no power in Harlem. He was nothing. Just another hustler trying to make it. And in Harlem, Bumpy's word was law. Not because he was the most violent, but because people chose to follow him. Snake tried one more time. "I got 8 men here, Bumpy. You got what, 4? You really want to do this?" Bumpy smiled, but it was not a warm smile like he gave Tommy. This smile was ice. "Go ahead then, start something. See what happens." Nobody moved. Snake's men stood still. They were not going to fight for him. Not against Bumpy Johnson. Snake realized he was alone. His power was an illusion. It only existed because people feared him. But they feared Bumpy more. Or rather, they respected Bumpy more. That was the difference. "Smart choice," Bumpy said when Snake did not move. "Now, first thing you're going to do is go to Mrs. Rodriguez's restaurant and apologize. Give back whatever money you took. Then you're going to leave Harlem. Today. If I see you here tomorrow, we'll have a different conversation." Snake nodded slowly. The fight had gone out of him. He was beaten without a single punch being thrown. That was Bumpy's real genius. He won the fight before it started. As they left the pool hall, Tommy was quiet. He was processing what he had seen. Bumpy had been ready for violence if necessary, but he had structured the situation so violence was not necessary. He gave Snake a way out. He made it clear what would happen if Snake refused. He showed his strength without using it. It was masterful. "Questions?" Bumpy asked as they walked back into the sunlight. "How did you know his men wouldn't fight for him?" Tommy asked. "Because I know his men. 3 of them used to work for me. They know the difference between a real leader and a pretender. They weren't going to risk their lives for Snake's ego. Marcus added, Bumpy always does his homework. He knew who would be there before we walked in. He knew exactly how it would go down. Nothing was left to chance. They returned to Mrs. Rodriguez's restaurant. Snake was already there, apologizing. He gave her back the money he had taken. Mrs. Rodriguez was crying again, but this time from relief. After Snake left, she hugged Bumpy and thanked him over and over. No thanks necessary, Bumpy said. This is what I do. You're part of this community. We protect each other. As they sat down at a table, Mrs. Rodriguez brought them coffee and food. She would not let them pay. Tommy was beginning to understand the economy of respect. Bumpy did not charge people for his help, but they wanted to help him in return. They were loyal to him. That loyalty was worth more than any protection money. Let me tell you about the business side, Bumpy said to Tommy. A lot of what I do is legitimate. I own properties. I have investments. I help people start businesses and take a small percentage of the profits. It's all legal, all above board. The illegal stuff, the numbers game, that's a smaller part of what I do now. Old Joe spoke up. Used to be different. In the old days, Bumpy's operation was mostly illegal. But times changed. The law changed. Opportunities changed. Bumpy adapted. That's another lesson right there. You gotta know when to change with the times. The numbers game is dying anyway, Bumpy said. New York is talking about starting a state lottery. When that happens, my numbers business will disappear. I've been preparing for that. Diversifying. Buying real estate. Investing in legitimate businesses. In 5 years, I plan to be completely legal. This surprised Tommy. He thought Bumpy would always be a gangster, always be on the wrong side of the law. But Bumpy was thinking ahead, planning for the future. He was not just surviving, he was evolving. The key, Bumpy explained, is to always be thinking 5 years ahead. Where will things be? What will people need? How can I position myself to meet those needs? That's how you build something that lasts. After lunch, Bumpy took Tommy to meet some important people in the community. First was Reverend Powell at the Baptist church. The Reverend was a big man with a bigger voice. He had led the church for 30 years. He greeted Bumpy warmly. Bumpy, good to see you. Who's this young man? This is Tommy Wright. He's going to be working with me, learning the business. I wanted him to meet you. Reverend Powell shook Tommy's hand. His grip was firm. Welcome, Tommy. Any friend of Bumpy's is welcome here. Your grandfather was James Wright? Yes, sir, Tommy said, surprised. You knew him? Good man, very good man. He helped build the new wing of this church. Worked every Saturday for 2 years. You should be proud to carry his name. Tommy felt something stir in his chest. Pride. His grandfather had been a good man, a respected man. Tommy had been so focused on making his own name that he had forgotten about honoring his grandfather's name. Bumpy and the Reverend talked for a while about church business and community issues. Tommy listened. He learned that Bumpy donated money to the church regularly. He helped fund the youth program. He made sure the church could help families in need. This was a side of Bumpy that Tommy never knew existed. The church is the heart of the community, Bumpy explained as they left. A smart man supports the church, not because he's religious necessarily, but because the church does good work. It keeps families together, it keeps kids out of trouble. It gives people hope. That's worth supporting. Next, they visited Dr. Washington, the only black doctor in the neighborhood. His office was busy with patients. Dr. Washington greeted Bumpy warmly and made time to talk despite the crowd. This is Tommy Wright, Bumpy introduced. He's learning how things work around here. Dr. Washington was a serious man with kind eyes. Wright? James Wright's grandson? Yes, sir. Your grandfather was a patient of mine. I was sorry to hear about his passing. He spoke of you often. Said you were smart, ambitious. He worried about you, though. Worried you might go down the wrong path. Tommy felt his throat tighten. His grandfather had worried about him, had seen where Tommy was heading. And now here Tommy was, being given a second chance by Bumpy Johnson. Dr. Washington led them to his small office in the back. Medical books lined the shelves, diplomas hung on the wall. A photograph showed a younger Dr. Washington graduating from medical school. He had been the only black student in his class. Bumpy helped me open this practice, Dr. Washington said. 15 years ago, I had just finished medical school. I had student loans. I had no money. No bank would give me a loan to start a practice because I was black. But Bumpy believed in me. He gave me the money I needed. Tommy looked at Bumpy with new respect. You financed his medical practice? Best investment I ever made, Bumpy said. Dr. Washington has saved countless lives. He treats people whether they can pay or not. He's made this neighborhood healthier. That's worth more than money. Dr. Washington nodded. I pay Bumpy back a little each month. No interest. He never asked for interest, just said to pay what I could afford and to take care of the community. That's the kind of man he is. They talked for a while about health issues in the neighborhood. Dr. Washington explained how poverty led to health problems, how people could not afford medicine or treatment, how preventable diseases killed people because they had no access to health care. This is another part of the work, Bumpy said to Tommy, understanding the real problems people face. Health, education, jobs, housing, these are the things that matter. If you want to lead a community, you have to care about these things. You have to help solve these problems. As they left the doctor's office, Tommy's head was spinning. He had thought being powerful meant controlling territory and collecting money. But Bumpy was showing him that real power meant improving lives, solving problems, building things that lasted. They walked past a school. Children were playing in the yard, their laughter filling the air. Bumpy stopped and watched them for a moment, a smile on his face. See those kids? Bumpy said. They're the future. Everything I do, I think about them. What kind of world am I leaving for them? What opportunities will they have? That's what matters in the end. A teacher came out and waved at Bumpy. Her name was Miss Johnson, no relation to Bumpy despite the same last name. She walked over to talk. Mr. Johnson, thank you for the donation. The new books arrived yesterday. The children are so excited. My pleasure, Miss Johnson. Education is the most important investment we can make. After she left, Bumpy explained. I donate to every school in Harlem. Books, supplies, scholarships for college. Some people think I do it for show, for reputation, but I do it because it matters. These kids deserve a chance, a real chance. They continued walking. Block by block, Bumpy showed Tommy the invisible web of connections he had built over decades. The barbershop owner he had helped, the widow whose rent he paid, the young man whose college tuition he covered, the family whose house he saved from foreclosure. Each person had a story. Each story involved Bumpy helping them in some way. This is your real empire, Tommy said, finally understanding. Not territory or money, it's people, relationships, trust. Now you're getting it, Bumpy said, clearly pleased. Every person I help becomes part of my network, not because I force them, but because they want to. They're loyal to me because I've been loyal to them. That's power that lasts. That's power nobody can take away. Willie spoke up. I've seen men with armies, men with guns and money and muscle. They all fell eventually. Someone tougher came along, someone meaner, someone with more guns. But Bumpy? He's lasted because his power isn't based on fear. It's based on love, on respect, on being genuinely good to people. Old Joe added his thoughts. In 40 years, I've seen a lot of men rise and fall. The ones who rose through violence always fell through violence. But Bumpy? He'll die in his bed, old and respected. That's rare in our world. That's what real success. The sun was setting now, painting Harlem in shades of orange and gold. They ended up back at the corner cafe where the day had started. It felt like a lifetime ago that Tommy had pushed Bumpy. So much had changed since then. Tommy had changed. They sat at the same table. Rosie brought them dinner without asking. She knew what they liked. This was another sign of Bumpy's way. He was a regular customer, treated Rosie with respect, tipped well. She was happy to see him. That was how Bumpy moved through the world, making friends, not enemies. So Tommy, Bumpy said, as they ate. What did you learn today? Tommy thought carefully. He wanted to get this right. I learned that power is not what I thought it was. It's not about being tough or feared, it's about being trusted, being part of the community, helping people, building relationships that last. Good. What else? I learned that violence should be the last option, not the first. That you can often win without fighting. That being smart is better than being strong. Bumpy nodded. What else? Tommy thought harder. I learned that thinking ahead is important, planning for the future, adapting to change, not getting stuck in old ways when the world is changing. Excellent. And the most important lesson? Tommy knew this one. That what we do today affects the children of tomorrow. That we're building a future, not just living in the present. That we have a responsibility to leave things better than we found them. Bumpy smiled broadly. Tommy, right, you're a quick learner. Your grandfather would be proud. In one day, you've learned what takes most men years to understand. You have potential. Real potential. Marcus raised his coffee cup. To Tommy, welcome to the family. Willie and old Joe raised their cups too. They all drank. Tommy felt something he had not felt in a long time. He felt like he belonged. Like he was part of something bigger than himself. Like he had found his place. After dinner, Bumpy said they had one more stop. There's a meeting tonight. Some of the other leaders in Harlem. I want you to come. Just watch and learn. Don't speak unless spoken to. They walked to a club on 145th Street. Inside, it was elegant. Red velvet curtains, crystal chandeliers, a small stage where a jazz band played quietly. This was not a dive bar. This was a place where important people met. In a private room in the back, several men were already waiting. Tommy recognized some of them from the streets. They were leaders of different neighborhoods, different operations. Some ran numbers, others ran clubs or had legitimate businesses. All of them were powerful in their own right. But when Bumpy walked in, they all stood up. That told Tommy everything he needed to know. These men respected Bumpy. They deferred to him. He was the leader among leaders. Gentlemen, Bumpy said, this is Tommy Wright. He's working with me now, learning the business. Treat him as you would treat me. That was a powerful statement. Bumpy was giving Tommy his protection, his endorsement. In this room, that meant everything. The men nodded at Tommy. He nodded back, trying to look confident. The meeting was about business. Someone wanted to open a new club. Where should it be? Another man had a problem with the police harassing his establishment. How should they handle it? A third man reported that some outsiders were trying to move drugs through Harlem. What should they do? Tommy watched and listened. He saw how Bumpy facilitated the discussion. He did not dictate. He listened to everyone's opinion. He asked questions. He helped them reach consensus. When they could not agree, Bumpy offered a compromise that satisfied everyone. He was not a boss giving orders. He was a leader guiding his team. The meeting lasted 2 hours. Decisions were made. Problems were solved. Everyone left satisfied. That was Bumpy's gift. He could bring people together, find common ground, solve conflicts before they became violence. After everyone left, Bumpy and Tommy sat alone in the private room. The jazz band still played in the main club. The music drifted in, soft and smooth. Bumpy poured them both a drink. Whiskey, neat. Long day, Bumpy said. The longest of my life, Tommy admitted, but the best too. Bumpy smiled. You did good today, Tommy. You listened. You learned. You kept an open mind. A lot of young men in your position would have been too proud. They would have refused to learn, but you were smart enough to see the opportunity. Tommy sipped his whiskey. It burned going down, but in a good way. Can I ask you something? Anything. Why me? There must be other young guys you could teach, guys who didn't disrespect you like I did. Why give me this chance? Bumpy was quiet for a moment, thinking. Honestly? Because you reminded me of myself. You have fire, ambition, intelligence. You just needed direction. And because I saw your grandfather in you. James was a good man. He deserved better than to have his grandson become just another street thug. I owed him that much. You knew my grandfather? Not well, but I knew of him. He had a good reputation. Hard-working, honest. He helped build half the churches in Harlem. Men like that, they're the backbone of the community. They don't get remembered like I do, but they're more important. They're the reason communities survive and thrive. Tommy felt tears in his eyes. He blinked them back. I wish I had known him better. I was too young when he died. Then honor his memory by being the man he wanted you to be. Don't waste this chance, Tommy. Be someone your grandfather would be proud of. Be someone the next generation can look up to. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, listening to the jazz. The trumpet player was talented. The music was melancholy and beautiful. It sounded like Harlem felt. Sad and hopeful at the same time. Struggling but surviving. Hurting but healing. I want to show you something, Bumpy said. He reached into his coat and pulled out an old photograph. It showed a much younger Bumpy with a beautiful woman. They were smiling, arms around each other. "That's me and Stephanie St. Clair, the woman I told you about. This was taken in 1935. I was about your age." Tommy looked at the photograph carefully. Young Bumpy looked confident, almost cocky, but his eyes showed intelligence and ambition. Just like Tommy's eyes probably showed. "Stephanie taught me everything I know," Bumpy continued. "She was the smartest person I ever met. She could have been anything, a lawyer, a businesswoman, a politician, but society would not let a black woman be those things, so she became a queen of the underworld instead. She beat men at their own game. She was brilliant." "What happened to her?" "She retired, moved away. She's living peacefully now, enjoying her success. She earned it. She built an empire and then had the wisdom to walk away when it was time. That's the final lesson, Tommy. Knowing when to step back, knowing when to let the next generation take over." Bumpy put the photograph away. "That's what I'm doing now. I'm not going to live forever. I'm preparing for the future. Men like you, Marcus, Willie, others I've trained, you're going to take over when I'm gone. You're going to lead Harlem into the next era. But only if you learn the right lessons. Only if you lead the right way." Tommy felt the weight of responsibility. This was not just about him anymore. It was about the whole community, about all the people who depended on strong, wise leadership. About the children who needed a better future. About honoring the past while building something new. "I promise," Tommy said. "I'll learn everything you have to teach. I'll lead the right way. I won't let you down. I won't let my grandfather down. I won't let Harlem down." Bumpy shook his hand. "That's all I ask. Learn, grow, lead with wisdom, not with violence. Take care of the community, build something that lasts, do that, and you'll be fine." They left the club and walked through the night streets of Harlem. It was cold, but the sky was clear. Stars shone above, bright and beautiful. The streets were quieter now. Most people were home, warm with their families, but some shops were still open. Some people were still out, living their lives. Tommy saw Harlem differently now. This morning, he saw it as territory to conquer. Now he saw it as a community to serve. These were not potential victims to shake down. They were neighbors to protect. This was not a game to win. It was a responsibility to honor. "Tomorrow," Bumpy said, "you start learning the real business. Marcus will teach you about the money side, how to keep books, how to invest, how to manage cash flow. Willie will teach you about security, about reading people, about preventing problems before they start. Old Joe will teach you about history, about relationships, about the subtle art of negotiation. And I'll teach you about leadership, about vision, about thinking 5 years ahead." "I'm ready," Tommy said, and he meant it. They reached the corner where they would part ways. Bumpy lived uptown. Tommy lived downtown. But now they were connected. Teacher and student, leader and apprentice, the old generation and the new. "One more thing," Bumpy said. "That push this morning? Don't ever do that to anyone else. You know why? Because it's disrespectful? Because it's lazy," Bumpy corrected. "You wanted to prove something, so you pushed me. But proving yourself through disrespect is the easy way, the lazy way. The real challenge is proving yourself through excellence. Through wisdom. Through building something good. That's harder, but that's what lasts." Tommy nodded. He understood. This morning he was a foolish young man looking for a fight. Tonight he was a student with a future. All because Bumpy Johnson did something unexpected. Something that shocked everyone. He responded to violence with kindness, to disrespect with generosity, to conflict with opportunity. They shook hands one last time. Then Bumpy walked away. His coat pulled tight against the cold, his hat tipped low. Tommy watched him go. The old man who ruled Harlem not through fear but through wisdom. The teacher who saw potential where others saw only trouble. Tommy turned and walked home. His life had changed today. He had pushed Bumpy Johnson expecting a fight. Instead, he got an education. He got a future. He got a chance to be something more than another street thug who died young or ended up in prison. As he walked, Tommy thought about his grandfather, about the kind of man James Wright had been, about the legacy he left. Tommy wanted to build a legacy too, not a legacy of violence and fear, but a legacy of service and leadership, a legacy that would make his grandfather proud. The snow crunched under his feet, the cold air filled his lungs. Above, the stars shone bright. Tomorrow would bring new lessons, new challenges, new opportunities. But tonight, Tommy Wright was grateful. Grateful for the push that changed his life. Grateful for the man who responded with wisdom instead of violence. Grateful for a second chance. And somewhere in Harlem, in a warm apartment, Bumpy Johnson smiled to himself. Another young man saved. Another potential leader trained. Another seed planted for the future. This was his real legacy. Not the money or the power, but the lives he changed, the people he helped, the community he served. That was the story of the day Bumpy Johnson got pushed and shocked everyone with his response. It was a story that would be told in Harlem for years to come. A reminder that true power comes not from violence but from wisdom. Not from fear but from respect. Not from taking but from giving. And for Tommy Wright, it was just the beginning.